Good morning, boys and girls. Today we're going to take a look at some more difficult division problems. They're more difficult because we're going to be looking at multi-digit divisors. So we're going to be dividing by bigger numbers, which makes the process a little bit more challenging. But the good news is that the process does actually remain the same. Our steps to long division do not change when we're dividing by larger divisors. The only thing that changes is the fact that we have to do a little bit extra work to figure out how many times some of these larger numbers, such as 24, fit into these other larger dividends. So let's go ahead and list out the steps to division. Now remember, we came up, well, again, we didn't come up with this saying, but it's already been out there. We talked about a little saying to help us remember an acronym. Does McDonald's sell burgers raw? That helps you to remember those first letters of the operations, the orders of the operations that we do to perform long division. So the D stands for divide, and we multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat, and we repeat. So that's our steps to long division. Now that will stay the same when we are dividing by these larger numbers. This idea does not change. The only thing that does change is this division part. Well, and again, it's not changing, it's just more difficult, because now what we have to do is we have to try and figure out how many times 24 fits into this larger number. We're really good when our divisor is just one digit, because you know your times tables. Let's say we were just dividing by 4 instead, and I ask you how many times does 4 fit into 28. You know that right off the bat because you know your 4 times tables. Now unfortunately we don't know our 24 times tables. Well, it's not unfortunate, that's actually okay. We don't need to have that memorized because we have multiplication and we can figure out what 24 times 3 is, or times 4 is, or times 8, or whatever number we need. And thankfully we have some estimation strategies to help us figure out how many times these larger divisors fit into the dividend. Now these estimation methods that I'm going to discuss don't work for every problem, but when they work really nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to estimate our divisor to create a more compatible number. So compatible numbers are just numbers that work really well together. Then what we're going to do is multiply and adjust. Multiply and adjust. So we're basically going to guess and check, and then we will adjust accordingly. So let's go ahead and do an example together. So we've got 2,856 divided by 24. Okay, we're going to start in our largest place value. I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 24 fit into 2? It fits in 0 whole times. Now again, I do want you using the 0 placeholder out in front, because when we decide to go decimal route, that decimal needs to go straight up, which means all of our numbers need to be in the proper place, because if not, this decimal could get stuck in between the wrong numbers, and that would actually be a huge problem, and your answer would not be correct. So now let's take a look. So we know 24 goes into 2 0 times, but now let's look at this as 28. How many times does 24 go into 28? It goes in once. We subtract 24. 4 is left over. We bring down the 5. And we repeat. How many times does 24 go into 45? Well, let's try 2 times. Let's just ask ourselves if this might fit in twice, because I think it's a close call. Well, 2 times 24 is 48, so that's a little bit too much. So unfortunately, it doesn't fit in twice, but it does certainly fit in one whole time. We subtract 24 again. Okay, now this is where it does get a little bit trickier, because now I'm asking myself, how many times does 24 fit into 216? So that's not easy for our brains. We don't know that right off the bat, and that's okay. But let's go ahead and take a look at our divisor. So we're dividing by 24. And 24 is actually nice to is close to a nice number that we do feel comfortable skip counting with and can do some mental math pretty quickly with. And the number I'm thinking of is 25. It's really close to 25. So let's try 25 first, and then we'll adjust accordingly. So 25 fits into 216. Well, we can start skip counting by 25. We've got 25, 50, 75, 100. So I know that 24 fits into 100 4 times, which means it's going to fit into 200 8 times. Now another set of 25 will not fit into the 216. So we know that 25 times 8 is 200. So let's go ahead and see if what 24 times 8 gives us. Let's try let's try 8 because it does get 25 close to this number. So I'm thinking it'll get 24 close to this number as well. So let's do 24 times 8, 192. Okay, so 192 and 216 are close, but not super duper close. So let's actually bump this up. Let's try times 9 and see if we might be able to get a little bit closer, because I'm thinking we might be able to fit in another set of 24. So we're going to multiply by 9, 6. Oh, bingo. 216 is exactly what we wanted, so it goes in 9 times. And we have a remainder of 0. Now, as a friendly reminder, we can check our work, and in fact, I would encourage you to. So let's check our work here. I check my work by multiplying my quotient by my divisor. So this is going to be 119 times 24. That's 36. That's going to be 7. That's 4. Remember, we need that 0 placeholder. Let's see, 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. 6, 5, carry the 1. 8, 2,856, which is what I started with, so I know I'm correct. Let's do one more example together. 746 divided by 43. So let's go ahead and set this up. 746 divided by 43. Again, our process does not change. We're going to start here with the 7. 43 goes into 7 0 times. 43 goes into 74 one whole time. Not twice, because twice would be 86. That's too much. So we're going to subtract 43. Bring down the 6. So now we've got 316. 316 divided by 43. So let's just write that down over here. 316 divided by 43. Now let's think about some compatible numbers. Back to that idea of compatible numbers, numbers that work well together. Well, 43 is pretty close to 40. I'm picking a multiple of 10 because it's really nice dividing by multiples of 10. Now, if you remember, when we divide by multiples of 10, we can cancel out zeros. So I would really like to change this to a number that ends in a 0. And I'm going to use my estimation skills. And if you recall, when we're dividing by multiples of 10, we cancel out the zeros and then we divide the non-zero digits. So I'm thinking of a number that's really, really close to 316. That's divisible by 40, and that would be 320. And if you remember, those zeros cancel out. 32 divided by 4 is 8. So let's try 8 times. So let's do 43 times 8, and let's see where that gets us. 4, carry the 2, 32, 34. Okay, so 8 was too large of an estimation because 43 times 8 is 344, which is too large. So let's deduct that by 1. Let's try 7 instead. 1, carry the 2, 301. Yes, that certainly does fit in with a little bit left over, with 15 left over, which means the 43 could not have fit in again. Minus 301, 15, and we'll just go fraction route. Remainder over divisor. So this answer is 17 and 15/43.